Everybody, happy weekend. I just finished reading the most amazing book, and this was a middle grade book. So, here in Austin, we have something called the Five Book Dive, where the Austin ISD librarians make a list of books that are recommended for students to read that we think would be great summer reading. And it's called the Five Book Dive because we recommend you read five of them, but we make lists of 20 titles for elementary, for bilingual students, there's a list of Spanish books, there's a list of 6 through 8 titles, and there's a list of 9 through 12 titles. I was on the committee for 2 of them, for the 6 through 8 titles and the 9 through 12 titles, and we are currently working on making annotations for the books that are on the list. And I had the complete pleasure of reading Amal Unbound. This book is gorgeous. Look at this cover. It is beautiful. I loved it. It was one of last year's Bluebonnet books, and I was immediately drawn to it when I heard about that because I'm sorry that there's a glare, but this cover is absolutely gorgeous. And I was immediately drawn to it because it's so pretty. But it's also an awesome story. I literally read it in one day. I started reading it yesterday morning when I was at the gym, and then I read it the entire day. Could not put it down because it was great. It is not a long book. You can see it's not a super long novel. It is it is 220 pages. So it's not that long. If you were reading it with a class, you could probably finish it in a week or two. If you're reading it on your own, you could probably finish it in a weekend. It was great. So it is about Amal, and Amal is the eldest daughter in a family of 5. It starts with a family of 4, and then in the very beginning of the book, Amal's mother gives birth to her 4th little sister. And that is when Amal notices that people keep telling her family that they're sorry and that they feel bad for them, and they're not excited for her family to have another daughter. And she sees that and she's like, why is it bad to have another girl? Why? And people start explaining because boys take care of the family, girls marry off and join another family, but girls stay, and girls go off to join another family, but boys stay, and boys take care of the family, and boys will take on the family business, and boys will keep the family's property. And that's when Amal's like, but I could do that. I could do all these things. Why can't I do it? And her family keeps telling her, because you will marry someday. And she thinks, but I don't want that. I want to be able to take care of my family. Why is it so bad to be a girl? So it gets pretty deep and pretty heavy really quickly. Once this new baby is born, Amal's mother goes into postpartum depression. It is never straightforward said that, but there's hints to it. So if you see the signs for it, you know that's what's going on. And Amal has to stay home from school and take care of her family. And what Amal learns is that her father promised her that as time went on, she might be able to return back to school once her mother has returned to health. And Amal notices the laundry never ends. The dishes are always needing to be done. The ironing is never done. Nothing is ever completed. And she gets frustrated and she thinks, I just want to go back to school, because Amal wants to know things. She wants to learn things. She sees her value in education, and she knows that through education she can do anything. And she wants to be a teacher. And so taking Amal from school, you can see it, how as the book progresses, it really, really hurts her. And she really wants to go back. Like, that's all she wants, is to go back to school. And she fights so hard to go back until she realizes she's not going to get back to school. And when that page came and that realization came to her, it hurt my heart for her so badly. So it was so sad, her realization coming. So then one day, Amal decides, you know what? I've got a few minutes. I'm going to go to the market by myself. And for her, that is a huge deal because she can't go anywhere alone. She always has to take her little sisters, and she just wants to be able to have a few minutes to herself. I thought it was really interesting to see this kind of mental internal struggle, because she realizes she is just a kid, and she has all this responsibility, and she really just wants a few minutes to herself. I think that's a great parallel to show students, like, this is probably how your mother feels. She really just wants a few minutes to herself. But it's also showing how no matter what culture you are, if you are the eldest daughter or sibling, you do have to take care of everyone else. And you have this sort of pressure on yourself, even if it's not being put on you by your parents, you have that sort of pressure to be the one that leads. And so Amal wants these few minutes to herself because she's been doing so much. And so she goes to the market and she sees a pomegranate, and they don't have pomegranates very often. And she decides she wants this pomegranate. She deserves it. She deserves to have something sweet. She deserves to have one thing for herself. And she's standing there, and all of a sudden, a car hits her. And this man gets out of the car and starts yelling at her as if this was her fault, and tells her that he's going to take her pomegranate. And she says, "You just hit me with your car, and now you want to take something that was mine?" And he tells her, "You're the one who hit my car." I already had issues with this. It was so hard for me to get through this scene because, I mean, we are told as girls, you don't stand up for yourself and you accept things as they are. And Amal stands up for herself. And this is where she learns why it is so hard to be a girl. Because we find that the man whose car it was who hit her is the landlord for the entire town. His name is Jawad Sahib, and he is an awful, horrible man. The people of her village and of her town say what an awful person he is, the awful things he does, that when a town or another village tried to revolt against him and stand up to him, he burned their entire village down. So he's an awful person. And he says that this is a show of disrespect, that kids don't know how to be respectful. He hit her with his car. Y'all, I was so mad. Oh my God, I could not even. So news travels quickly, as it does, and it gets to her father, and her father comes home and of course gets after her and tells her, "Do you realize what you have done?" And she's like, "No, I stood up for myself. He hit me with his car." And her father tells her, "He's done awful things for less. So we just have to hope that the punishment he decides to give you is not as bad as it could be." So the day comes where Jawad Sahib comes to her home, and we find out that her father has been borrowing money from him, as many people in their village have, because he's the richest man in the village. He's the landlord. And we find out that their debt has just accrued, and her dad can't pay Jawad Sahib back quickly enough. And so Jawad Sahib says, "Okay, then she will come work for me and pay off your debt in my house." And they fight. They fight so much. They fight so hard to keep Amal, but there's nothing they can do. And so Amal goes. She goes to this man's house to become a servant, where she learns very quickly how servants are treated differently. And her family has a servant, and she says how, as a servant now, she has to eat off of different plates and drink from different cups. Whereas the servant that her family has as part of their family, there is no difference. She eats off the same plates. She drinks from the same cups. She's family. And now Amal has been put into a situation where she is not, and she knows nothing about what's going on. And it was so hard to get through that, where and you see her struggle through not knowing what's going to happen to her. And we learn how she has taken the place of another servant who served Jawad Sahib's mother. And so we see how Amal is replacing someone, and this other servant who she replaced hates Amal, just outright hates her, and it does things to get Amal in trouble. And Amal has to learn again how to stand up for herself, but she still questions, like, standing up for myself got me into this situation. How do I stand up for myself in a place where I don't belong, and I don't feel like my voice is valued? And even if I do speak up, could this get me in more trouble? And it's a really hard situation for her, but she quickly makes friends, and she learns how other people have her back and other people take care of her while they're servants, and she learns the servant life, which is really sad to say that she kind of gets used to serving. But it comes to be that she kind of makes friends with the woman that she is serving. She brushes her hair, she brings her meals, and they find that they're from neighboring villages and they know the same people. And so at one point, the woman tells her, "Why didn't you tell me that so-and-so is getting married?" And it's somebody from Amal's village. And Amal says, "Because I didn't know, because I'm here." And the woman tells her, "Well, then go home. You get 3 days off. Those are entitled to you. Take those 3 days, go spend that celebration time for this wedding with your family." And Amal is like, so happy. And she gets to go and spend a few days with her family. But again, it's really sad because at one point her mother says, no, you don't have to do chores now. You're a guest in our house. And Amal says, I know that she meant it kindly, and I know that she didn't mean anything by it, but to be a guest in the house where I was raised and that is my home, it hurts. It was really sad. So then we find out that there is a literacy center being put up in Amal's village and that nobody will go to it because they don't want anything to do with the person who built it, which is, surprise, Jawad Sahib. And they don't want anything to do with it. So once she goes back to where she is a servant to the Jawad Sahib's home, they tell her that she's going to go to the literacy center because they need to have at least one student there in case a reporter pops by. And they need to have somebody there. And so Amal makes a friend with her teacher, and he's very impressed with her from the beginning because she can read, she can write, she can do math. And so he starts teaching her about the computer and tells her about basic computer skills. And he tells her that his father is a lawyer and his grandfather is a lawyer, and he wanted to be a teacher, and how hope is a tricky thing. And when you stand up for what you believe in and for what you want to do, things can work out in your favor. And Amal thinks, no, things didn't work out in my favor. I stood up for myself and look where it got me. And I want to be a teacher. And I don't think I'll ever be a teacher now because this is where I am. I'm a servant now. And he just keeps telling her, hope is a tricky thing. You have to just keep working and keep working hard. Well, we learn that there are some things going on with Jawad Sahib and his father, where political things are happening and somebody has disappeared, and Jawad Sahib has something to do with it. And once again, Amal has to decide, if I know that something went wrong, do I stand up for what is wrong and speak up for what I know is wrong and do the right thing where it could get me in trouble again, or do I stay silent? Lots of parallels to the Hate U Give and to other struggles that girls have with speaking up. And so Amal decides, no, I know that something is wrong. I know that something bad happened. I know how I can get this truth out, and I know how I can help other people. And so she does. She finds a way to make a difference, and she finds a way to stand up for what is right. And she gets the person who did something bad what is coming to him. And it was great, but it's still so scary to her to stand up for herself because this is what got her into indentured servitude in the first place. And then we see the repercussions of it, where something bad has happened. And for some of the servants, this was their job. They weren't there as indentured servants, and they needed this money to send back to their families. And now they have nowhere to go. And then the people who were just working there have nowhere else to go. This was their home. And then we see other servants. There's a little girl named Fatima who has just grown up there. Her family didn't want her, and they left her to be there as a servant. So she doesn't have anywhere to go. And so with these big things and with these big changes, Amal sees that how she used her voice to do what is right, it affects other people differently. And it was a really great lesson to see in a middle grade book, because this is a middle grade book. And it was beautiful. I'm not going to give you a spoiler as to whether Amal gets to go home or not, but it was great. It was beautiful and so vivid. I could see the colors, and I could see the foods they were making, and I could just see everything that she was describing. This book was gorgeous, and it deserves all the attention. If you want a really quick, really great read that is just going to touch your heart and encourage you to do the right thing and to stand up for yourself and your hopes and your dreams, this is it. I think this would be a great classroom novel. The author also includes an author's note about Malala and how she stood up for girls to get an education, and how this book is dedicated to girls who continue to be brave. And at one point, somebody tells Amal that she is strong and courageous, and she says, I didn't have a choice. This is something I had to do. This wasn't an option. And then the person tells her, that's bravery. When you see it and you know that something is going wrong and you know that things can go wrong for you if you speak up, that is bravery. So I think it was a great way to see a strong girl with hope and with strength and with perseverance getting through and fighting through something that happened to her to do good for others. So again, Amal Unbound. It was beautiful. Go read it. And if you enjoyed today's vlog, please click like and hit subscribe. Bye!